This holiday, a beloved hero returns, and a new ally rises.
Disney Epic Mickey 2 is almost finished. It's almost in the street, and we're here with Warren Spector. Maybe your trademark concept is the Playstyle Matters. How can we expect that concept to evolve in this musical experience?
Well, don't expect the music to play a part in that. That's to be clear, there are songs throughout this game, but they're not interactive yet. I've got crazy ideas that we'll explore in later games. But the way the Playstyle Matters is expressed in this game is actually very deep and surprisingly sophisticated, actually, for a game about a mouse and a rabbit. You know, every choice you make about when to use paint, when to use thinner, changes the way the world looks. And it changes it forever. So once you make a change in this game, you can't undo a lot of the things you do. And there are always people watching you, characters watching you saying, wow, I wish you hadn't erased that. Or why did you destroy that water tower? Or, you know, I asked you to help those characters and all you did was erase them to get them out of your way. And so every character is watching everything you do. Your changes really are now very significant. What you do on a map changes that map. What you do on a map changes what happens on other maps. What you do on a map changes how characters feel about you, what quests you learn about, what rewards you get, what challenges you face. I mean, there are some big changes. And, of course, how the game ends up. Your end game is going to be unique based on how you played. So anybody who thought the choice and consequence wasn't a big enough part of the first game, we're going all the way this time.
The game is obviously playable on the show floor, and I guess you've been gathering some feedback from players. How has been that feedback so far you've been gathering?
Well, luckily the feedback's been great. You know, I thought the team did a great job on the first game, but there were some things we knew we could do better. So this time around, we really tried to make the camera system more robust and work a little better. I made a choice in the first game that characters weren't going to talk. Nobody was going to talk. And in this game, everybody talks. We're translating it into every language we can think of. All the changes that you made in the first game didn't actually persist from map to map. In this game, they do. So what I've been hearing, luckily, I mean, I breathe a sigh of relief every time I hear this, is, hey, you really did address all the stuff that we wanted to be better in the first game. So, so far, so good.
You mentioned the camera. In the first game, it was rather difficult for your team to implement it due to the things that appeared and disappeared and then blocked the camera. How have you been enhancing its behavior?
Well, we've made you know, over 1,000 specific code changes. So there are a lot of very small, subtle things that we're doing to make the camera actually read the environment better. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is the designers now understand how to create a map that doesn't break the camera. I mean, half of the equation in any third-person camera system is the camera system itself, but the other half is building levels that are designed to work within the constraints of your camera system. And so now we understand how to build a level. The environment artists and designers in particular understand how to build things so the camera doesn't get in the way as much. And I think maybe the biggest sort of obvious mistake I think we made in the first game was there were times where we said, I can't believe we did this. We said, we know better than the player where the camera should be. And so we didn't let you move the camera at certain points. And, like, for me, I mean, I'm the guy who makes games that are all about empowering players. And so how could I have, like, just not noticed that our camera system was disempowering players? But this time around, you can always move the camera. I mean, you're in control. But the coolest thing is, like, if you look at the Wii in particular, if you're on the main story path, you literally never have to touch the manual camera controls. You can, and certainly I do, because I want to go exploring everywhere and seeing everything and looking in every sort of corner to find the hidden Mickeys and all the rewards and treasures. But when you're on the main story path, you just never have to touch the manual camera. And so I think that's an indication of how much work's gone into it and how much more effective it is now.
In the first game, you worked with loads of Disney documents and secrets, and we found a lot of references, pretty deep references. How is it in the new game? Is it as deep and as detailed as the first game? That kind of link to the Disney universe?
Disney's past plays as big a part in Disney Epic Mickey 2 as it did in the first game, for sure. I mean, you know, the first time I went to the Imagineering sort of research center in Glendale, California, the guy I was talking to there apologized that they had only scanned 90,000 images so far. Only 90,000, yeah. The first time I went into the animation research library, they asked me what I wanted to see, and I said, well, why don't you just show me everything you got on Alice in Wonderland? And they just started laughing, you know. You have to narrow it down a little bit. I mean, there is so much material in the Disney archives. They're constantly finding new stuff. And even if they weren't, we could make games for the next 80 years about Disney's last 80 years and never run out of material. But in this game, it's actually kind of cool. There's some things, I don't want to reveal too much, but there's some Oswald-related things that even the Disney archives didn't know existed until recently. They just found them a couple of months ago, and we said, can we put that in the game? And yeah, so there's some big secrets for fans to find.
We have just there some story sequences, and in the first game, you said that emotional ending captured what you wanted. Is it happening again with Epic Mickey 2 ending?
The ending, heck, the beginning, the emotional level of the story, I think. I mean, you'll have to decide for yourself, but I mean, for me, the emotional level is even higher this time, for the simple reason that we actually are allowing actors to speak real words. You know, what actors like Frank Welker and some of the voice talent did on the first game, when all they could do was ooh, was amazing. But when you give actors real words to say, they can really pull some amazing performances. So we've got, you know, Frank Welker is the voice of Oswald. We've got Carrie Elwes, the voice of Gus the Gremlin in English. But we're using the real voice talent that, I mean, when you hear Mickey in Spanish, in French, in German, and it's really Mickey. It's, you know, so we worked with Marv Wolfman, who is an amazing award-winning comic book writer, to do our dialogue. We've got great actors. I think the emotional level is even higher this time.
You mentioned the Wii version before, but this time, are you taking advantage of the Wii Motion Plus sensor, and maybe PS3 with the Move is something similar? How the player can feel that improvement from the technology used on the first game?
Well, on the Wii, we obviously support the remote and the nunchuck, but the Wii Remote Plus, it's just the game will run if you have it installed, but we're not doing anything specific to take advantage of it, honestly. And we do support the Move, which allows the same sort of gestural control that you have on the Wii. We support standard controllers on the 360 and the PS3. Just to anticipate your question, you know, everybody asked about the Kinect, and we decided not to support the Kinect because I think, and everybody on the team thinks, it's an amazing piece of hardware, and it's great for certain things. Being on, you know, rail shooters, it's perfect. Performance games, it's perfect. But this game is about freeform exploration of a world, and none of us were smart enough to figure out how to do that with a Kinect as our interface. So maybe someday we'll make a Kinect game. I'd like to, but not this one.
You also decided not to support the Wii U yet. But the audience is obviously there. Maybe they're waiting for its own Mickey game in the near future, and you can use the Wiimote, you can use the drawing features on your pad. Maybe the question is why or why not yet?
Well, let me give you a big no comment on the Wii U, and instead talk about the 3DS, which I forgot to mention. We are doing a 3DS game set in Wasteland. You know, and there was certainly a temptation to just port the console game, but at the end of the day, we decided not to do that. The 3DS is such a unique platform that we wanted to make a 3DS game, and so I've been working with the guys at Dream Rift, which did Henry Hatsworth and Monster Tale, terrific games, and Peter Ong, their creative director, and we've done a tribute to 16-bit gaming. I mean, if you remember Castle of Illusion and you're a fan of the old Genesis and Super NES days, everybody's going nostalgic now and going back to the 8-bit graphics. But Peter and I just talked and said, wow, the Genesis ruled. You know, the SNES ruled. Why don't we go back to that? And so that's kind of where we are. It's a really classic 2D platformer, but with paint and thinner used to dynamically change your world in a very different way than in the console games. So I think people are really going to enjoy the 3DS version too. Very different experience.
Okay, looking forward to both games and eager to paint on this magical universe. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
They put the fate of Wasteland back into the hands of a certain brave mouse.
Disney Epic Mickey 2, The Power of Two.